Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Skill Issue, the greatest podcast on the internet. No one is arguing that at all. I'm here with my co-host.
Hello, how we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? It's so good to be back. Guys, I have some exciting news for you today. I know last week we talked about getting the studio.
Yeah.
You know, my boy at Broadway hooked us up.
Crazy.
And we are officially in the studio today. I'm sure you can tell by the audio difference.
We're right next to each other.
Yeah, and so let us know what you think of the new studio. You know, it's put a lot of work and love and blood, sweat, and tears into it.
$3 million studio. We had a crazy team working to craft all of this and make it look nice, dude. We have lights everywhere. We have people on teleprompters. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy out here. Yeah, shout out Bartholomew for the studio.
Bartholomew, he really came through for us. I mean, he's a legend, and nobody works like him. I don't know what country he's from, but they have a great work ethic there.
There's a lot of people that are replaceable. Bartholomew is not one of them.
No, he's not.
But to christen our brand new studio, we have a really exciting game. Mike loves this game. I love this game. If you have a heart and a soul, you love this game. It's Halo 1.
Guys, we're talking about Halo 1 today. This game is super important to me. It has like a huge place in my childhood, and I think kind of is why I love video games so much, honestly. Before we get into it, I do want to say, Seth, we hit 1,000 views on the Deep Rock episode.
Round of applause.
As you crazy dwarf motherfuckers that just watched the shit out of that video.
Of course, that's the one that blew up. I should have figured.
Yeah,
right?
I should have figured. But seriously, thank you for that. That is fucking epic.
Yeah, we've been doing this 2.5 months. I expected all of our videos to be sitting at 20, 30 views, to be honest with you.
Yeah, most of them are over 100.
Yeah.
The majority of them are 1 to 200 views.
We've been getting comments. People aren't enjoying them. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just dive right in. Seth, I played this game not when it came out, but in 2004 was the first time I played this game.
Okay.
When I was a wee lad. So why don't you tell me about, because you played it obviously a lot later than I did.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about how when you first found out about Halo and played this game for the first time?
You said you played it for the first time in 2004?
Yeah.
I was born in 2004.
That's crazy. I was 7 or 8
That's
in
crazy.
2004.
But yeah, growing up, I only ever played Halo Reach, and recently I wanted to do a whole playthrough of all the Halo games because Mike and my friend Adam really love them. Played through all the Halo games with Adam. Halo 1 is the first game we started with. I used the new generation graphics. You're able to switch between it and MCC, which is really cool. So I'd swap between the different graphics and stuff like that. But my first impressions were that obviously it was a good story. It's really rounded and well put together. Every other Halo game, kind of similar to Borderlands, feels like this long stretched out thing with a lot of paths. But one feels like a genuine full... Because at that time, did they not think they were going to make another Halo game? They were just kind of...
No, so we'll get into this, because I do want to kind of talk about Bungie and, the kind of development process of the first Halo game. But no, the Bungie and Microsoft thought that this was going to be a one-and-done game. It wasn't even going to be a first-person shooter at first. I don't know if you know that or not.
Was it going to be more Halo Wars style?
Yeah, it was going to be a third-person, almost like a Command and Conquer style game. I don't know if you ever played that, but yeah, it was gonna be a third person with the camera way back, and it had these huge open areas. It was almost more like a war simulator.
That's really
than
cool.
A first person shooter adventure.
Kind of similar to that new Space Marine game that's coming out.
Kind of, but this was in 2001,
yeah,
so you can imagine it wasn't
sophisticated.
Yeah, but yeah, I played Halo 1 for the first time in 2004. I remember my dad had an original Xbox, and him and I played it together. I specifically remember it because my dad made the exception for me to play it because it was an M-rated game, but he's like, "Well, you're just shooting aliens.
Exactly.
It's not like you're shooting people."
Just like Doom, when it's we're literally killing demons. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah. So my mom wasn't too thrilled about it, but I played it with him, and I just fell in love with it. Now I go back. I play it like at least once a year now, or once every 2 years. I do a playthrough of the game.
Just had a love for it.
Yeah, I just really love this game. I think I mean, we'll get to the score when we get to the score, but I really don't have too much negative to say about it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so Halo is a first-person sci-fi shooter developed by Bungie and published by Microsoft.
Boo.
A Bungie. Well, I mean, nowadays they're not that great of a studio, but
In their prime.
when they were in their prime, I mean, they were a small team of like, I think maybe 30 people when they worked on Halo 1.
Crazy.
And they were originally, funny enough, they were actually originally supposed to publish this on Apple devices. It was supposed to be a Mac-only game.
That would have bombed it.
I know.
That would have killed it.
I know. They had like a whole contract with like Apple. There's a documentary where they actually talk about working with Steve Jobs directly.
That's sick.
And and that contract eventually fell through. And then they went to Microsoft and was like, we have like half the work done on this game, but we need a publisher. And Microsoft was like, yeah, sure. We're releasing this new console that we want you to put it on.
Ship it with
So, yeah. And like I said, originally it was going to be this like top-down shooter. And then it became like a third-person, like open, like war simulator, and then it became what it is now, which is a first-person shooter. So,
That's incredible.
kind of pioneered the game industry too. I mean, I don't know how much you know about first-person shooters at the time.
There was not a lot of them. I know Doom was relatively popular. You had like the arena games like Quake. You had Half-Life release. I feel like Halo kind of like made it competitive. Like you had all these games that were laying down the FPS genre, then Halo came in and did it in such a distinguished way, done with such love and care that it like, that's the way I see it. Is that true?
That's basically true. I mean, it modernized the genre. Like,
yeah.
There's so many things that a lot of people take for granted in first-person shooters now that Halo kind of revolutionized. Like the 2-weapon system, where you can only carry 2 weapons at once.
Yeah.
Regenerating health is a big one.
Oh, true.
Twin stick controls, like
Yeah.
having one stick to move and one stick to control where you're looking.
That's crazy.
That was revolutionary. Like Halo is a big reason that first-person shooters even exist on consoles at all.
Yeah.
Because almost every first-person shooter that's come out since uses some form of the Halo control scheme.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this game is super important for the industry.
And I think, like, aside from technical stuff, like having a story like this, I know people talk about Half-Life being the first game with a story, but I don't think it's nearly as good as the story that you find in Halo. I don't think there were many games with a story as good as Halo up to that point, especially FPS games.
No, I was about to say, especially FPS games were not known for their single-player stories or campaigns.
No.
And this game, Halo, completely changed that. Like, Halo made it like a requirement. Like, if you want to compete with Halo, you have to have a story.
Yep.
So let's just get into it. So, Halo, you open up, you see a ship kind of floating through space. Yep. You're on the Pillar of Autumn.
That's the name of the ship.
Yep. And you kind of zoom in and you see a captain. This is Captain Keyes, your main leader for the human faction here, and he's talking about we just barely escaped that planet and we're being tracked by an entire fleet of Covenant. You don't know what that is yet, but they're like, what do we do? And they're like, unseal him. And then it cuts to like a bunch of guys opening a tube, and you see the guy on the cover of the game, the Master Chief.
Yeah. Beautiful green armor.
Yeah. And that's who you play as. You play as the Master Chief. You are a cybernetically enhanced super soldier. Basically a one-man army badass alien killing machine.
You really are a one-man army in this game.
Yeah. It's crazy. You step out of the tube and you're in the first mission where we're trying to repel these aliens from taking over the ship. What do you think about the Covenant? Talk a little bit about them.
The Covenant, I think Halo does sci-fi really well. every sci-fi movie has an iteration of technology, and they have different limits to what the technology can do, but it all more or less looks the same. But I think Halo does the sci-fi art and like the covenant design incredibly unique. Like there's no other alien race or species that has a similar like art style or like design of the covenant. It really seems alien, and
Mm-hmm.
it's instantly recognizable. Like I have so many memories of like those purple kind of rectangle things that are scattered throughout all the
Yep.
covenant ships. The banshees are incredibly unique. All the guns are really unique. So I think Halo carved out a cool style for the covenant. And we'll get into enemies and stuff, but I want to say here now that all the enemies are completely distinguishable. Like you can tell instantly what they are. You can tell where their weaknesses are. I just think it's really well designed, and it doesn't look like anything else I've ever seen. It's cool.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The fact that the Covenant is an organization of different species
Yeah.
also makes them feel more like a real faction. And they
Yeah,
explore
genuinely.
they explore this in more in like the sequels than in Halo 1, but you get this you learn you get the sense that there's more, that they're more than just guys you're supposed to shoot.
Yeah.
You know, like they speak their own language,
They have their
and
own mannerisms and levels of military.
yeah, they have like their own like internal politics, and they have like a whole religion that they follow, and
Yeah.
you know, whatever, like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they're not just murderous aliens. They're here to accomplish something.
Yeah. So we're on the Pillar of Autumn, and we get given a weapon. Captain Keyes hands you a pistol. He tells you you need to get Cortana off the ship. Cortana is a very important part of this game.
Smash.
Smash is crazy. That's crazy, but also agree.
Right?
Yeah, so Cortana is this little AI chick that was designed to captain the Pillar of Autumn, as far as we know, and she knows where the location of Earth is, obviously, 'cause she's a human AI. And it's implied here that the Covenant don't know where Earth is, so you have to get Cortana off the ship, because if the Covenant capture her, they'll find out where Earth is, which is like worst case scenario.
And I want to specify that the planet you leave at the start of the game is not Earth. It's a different planet called Reach.
Right.
You're not leaving Earth at the start of the game.
Yes. So you take Cortana, you shove her into the back of your head or whatever,
Yep.
and this is kind of the start of like one of the most well-known relationships in gaming, the Master Chief and Cortana.
Yeah.
What do you think about Cortana? Yes.
I think as far as AI goes, she's one of the coolest. They humanized her a lot, obviously. Like, there's really not a huge difference between like a human personality and Cortana. I think that's smart because it makes her more relatable and able to attach to her more. There's AI in a lot of other games like Portal, but GLaDOS, even though they humanized her, it took them a while. Like they had to go through Portal 2 to humanize her, and then they changed her voice and everything. I feel like AI voices in video games before Halo were that they were like robotic.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about Half-Life, all like you get it. I don't need to go super deep into it. But I like her personality. She's smart, she's sharp, and I think she bounces off Chief incredibly well. Like I feel like their chemistry is natural, and none of the dialogue between them seems forced. Like their personalities just match.
Yeah, well, Chief doesn't even have a lot of dialogue in this game, and most
Not
of
in
the
first
dialogue,
one, yeah.
right, and most of the dialogue that he does have is talking to Cortana.
Yeah.
That's like the majority of his lines. So, it really feels like it's you and her against the world.
Yeah.
For the rest of the game, she will basically be in your head, giving you your objectives, updating you on what the situation is with the other humans. And so, Captain Keyes tells you, as you were flying in, you can see this giant ring-shaped object. It looks like a space station
Yeah.
or some kind of like facility. Nobody's really sure what it is, but Captain Keyes basically says like, oh, this ship is going down. I'm going to try to land on that ring.
Okay.
And you got to get Cortana off the ship in case I don't make it.
Yeah.
And, so your goal for the first mission is to head to the escape pods and escape before the Covenant blow up the ship. First level is actually pretty standard. We've been talking about how like this game revolutionized the FPS genre. This level is not that. This level is a corridor shooter. Yeah. You go through hallways and you shoot aliens. There's a reason for that, which we'll get into in a second. But as a tutorial level, it works really well. It teaches you about the different weapons, about how switching weapons works. Different weapons have different abilities. You can interact with a lot of the Covenant weapons here, which I think is cool.
That's actually, I want to interject and say something here.
Yeah.
Halo does it really, since they have the 2 weapon system, but all the elites drop weapons, you're eventually going to run out of ammo, and you'll be forced a lot of times to pick up Covenant weapons and use them. I feel like Halo incentivizes using different weapons a lot, which is cool.
Oh, yeah. And the different weapons excel at different things. Like, you have your human
100%.
weapons, which are, like, all, like, standard, like, bullet-based weapons that are terrible against shields.
Yeah.
Which all the elites have personal shield generators, just like you do. So shooting them with, like, bullets is a pain in the ass because it takes forever to get through their shields. But their weapons melt shields.
Yeah.
So once you figure that out, you know, you're incentivized to, like, try out the Covenant weapons and, you know, see what you can do with them. And they all have cool functions, like the plasma pistol has the overcharge.
Classic.
Yeah, the classic noob combo.
I like the needler, that when you reload, the spikes blow up, like when you put needles in them.
Yeah, I love the needler, dude. It's so cool.
Cool.
Such a cool weapon.
Right.
And even the human weapons, too. Like, you've got your sniper rifle and your rocket launcher. And
then there's in my opinion, the greatest sword in all of gaming, the energy sword. Yeah. So cool. It's such a cool design, cool concept. They look good.
Yeah, you don't get it in this game, sadly. Not equipable in the first game.
It's not in Halo 1. The elites are the only ones that have them.
They have them, and if they smack you with them, they kill you instantly. But you can't pick them up. They just, like, I don't know what happens. They just, like, blow up on the ground when you kill the elite.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not equipable in this game. But I agree. It's a super cool, like, sword design.
So cool.
You know, especially since it's a sci-fi game. You're like, why would they be using swords? And then you see this thing, and you're like, oh, that's why.
Yeah. It destroys.
Yeah, it shreds. So yeah, and then I do like that you get also the Marines are a big part of this game.
Oh, they'll fight alongside you?
Yeah. So as you're fighting through the ship, obviously you're not the only one on the ship. There's tons of Marines aboard the ship as well. Yeah. And I do like their dialogue in this game is kind of basic, but it's always funny. Like they'll just shout stuff. Like you know, they'll shout at each other. They like to shoot each other a lot, so you'll hear them going like, "My bad."
Yeah. It's honestly charming.
You know,
it's really charming.
But they have different states. Like they react to how the fight is going. Like if you wipe out a whole team of Covenant and like they barely take any casualties, they'll like gloat and like start screaming like, "Yeah, suck on that, you motherfucker!" You know, but like
that's really I didn't even know that.
Yeah, but if they get wiped out, you'll start to see them like go berserk. Well, they'll start screaming. And they'll be like, "Come and take me," you know, or they'll run away. You know,
which makes the immersion incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, and the AI does this too, which is something that people talk about in Halo all the time. Is that the AI is super fun to fight because they also not only react to what you're doing. Yeah. But they also all have different like mannerisms depending on what they do and what goes on. Like the most famous one is when you kill the elite, all the grunts scatter because their leader's dead.
Yeah,
you know they all panic. I was
literally about to say that. I was like, I love when the grunts run away and like flail their arms in the air and shit.
Yeah. So
or like when you shoot their gas pack on their back and they go flying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so cool.
So, but yeah, you make it off the ship, and you get in the escape pod. Master Chief throws a guy in there because he almost doesn't make it. I like this scene because the Marine like looks at, as the escape pod's coming down to the ring, the Marine looks at Master Chief. He's like, "We're gonna make it, right?" And Master Chief just pats him on the shoulder and doesn't say anything. Like, "You're probably gonna die." And that's the first level. You escape the ship, and it's mostly a tutorial level, and you crash land on the ring.
I will say, as far as tutorial levels go, really cool. I feel like, I'm sorry for comparing it to Half-Life so much. It's the only FPS game I can think that came out around that time. But not even Half-Life had a tutorial that's that epic and grand. You know what I mean? Like, it locks you in while teaching. That's like standard for games now, but
Yeah, no,
it's really
again,
cool.
this is like a huge thing. Yeah, I completely agree. Like the level, like it's a tutorial, but it doesn't feel like a tutorial level.
Exactly.
You know?
You're thrown into it and you're just learning as you
Yeah.
like.
And I think, like I said, the Marines constantly screaming, like, "We got to get out of here!" And you hear the explosions coming from the outside of the ship. You can see the enemy ships flying around out the windows. You know,
So
like it
cool.
helps suck you in, so you're not like, you know, not to sound cliche, but like you almost forget you're playing a game. You
Exactly.
know. Um. So you land on the ring.
Which, by the way, has like a planet-like surface on the interior. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of incredible. Does it ever explain why the Covenant do that? Like why the rings have like habitable planet kind of design?
So the lore. Now I'm not like a super lore expert. I mean, I know enough about the lore, but these rings were created by this race we'll get into later called the Forerunners,
Yeah.
and the Forerunners were uh, basically ancient humans. Um, and so it's implied that at one point they probably lived on these rings.
Yeah.
And so that's why the environments kind of mimic Earth. Like you have your like grassy plains, and you have your snowy tundras and your deserts.
Yeah.
You know.
And you
Um,
explore all those in Halo games, I want to say. Not even just one, but all the Halo games, there's so much variety in setting.
oh yeah, just between the landscapes, and then you have like Pillar of Autumn style stuff where you're in like the human bases and human architecture.
Yep.
You have levels like the one we're coming up to after this one where you like have Covenant architecture with the bright purple colors, and
Yep.
everything's curved and like super like smoothed.
Yep.
You know. Um, But yeah, you land on this ring, and as you step out of the escape pod, you're like, oh, this world is like massive. Like you see this massive like waterfall that goes up this whole cliff, and there's a
Yeah.
river, and you can look off to the left, and you see this huge like vista of landscape, and then you can
Yeah.
see in the distance the ring coming up and around.
That's one of the things that I always loved about Halo early on was the spectacle of that. Because even in Reach, you could also see that ring on like the Forge world.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a cool concept, and I feel like a lot of people attach to that.
Oh yeah. Um, this is where like I think the genius of having the first level be a standard corridor shooter, and then you step out
Like
onto
the
the ring,
whole
and it's like
world.
this huge open world,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, this isn't like a typical shooter.
Yeah, it breaks that barrier right away. Because
Yeah.
you start thinking it is. I never thought about that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's
That's
huge,
really
and
well
I
designed.
I'm pretty sure it's intentional.
Yeah.
That Bungie did that on purpose. Um, so you step out of the life pod, you're greeted by this huge scenic view. That guy that asked if he was gonna make it did not make it. He's dead on arrival. But
R.I.P..
your goal here is to round up survivors. So not a lot of story in this level, honestly. The only thing you really find out is that the Covenant are looking to exterminate the survivors from the Pillar of Autumn, and also that they've captured Captain Keyes. That's what you
Aw.
find out. So, um, so you know, you talk about how after you finish rounding up survivors, you're gonna go on a rescue mission for him. But other than that, there's not a lot of story that happens in this level. It's mostly about the environment.
Yeah.
I think this level is what really sells people on Halo, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, this is the level, you play this level and you're like, I get it. You
Yeah.
know?
For a sci-fi game to see natural beauty is pretty cool. Most sci-fi games stick to like the technology and space and stuff like that, which you do get a little of in Halo, but you're in like legit environments and stuff, which I appreciate. Halo is sci-fi, but almost like doesn't feel sci-fi in a way. I don't know how to describe it.
It feels like a realistic kind of sci-fi.
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't feel like,
100%.
you know, like there's not like flying cars and like, you know, like tubes that like transport you at Mach speed.
Yeah.
Like, Now, granted, it also doesn't take place super far into the future, right? It's only like, I think the year that they give for Halo is like 2080 or something.
Wait, really?
I think so. I could be wrong. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me in the comments, but
Please do.
it's not that far into the future. So, you know, it's not like, I mean, people always make the jokes about like games that came out in the 80s that are like in the far off year of 2008, you know? So this game's like kind of like that, but like it's not like, you know, we're 500 years into the future where humanity is like hasn't been to Earth in 600 years, you know?
Like, we're using standard guns that look different from modern guns but function more or less the same.
Yeah, they're like, you have your assault rifle, your pistol, your sniper rifle, you know?
Yeah, and I don't foresee not having soldiers in the future that are, like, buffed up. I mean, Captain America was the first example in fiction of that, of making super soldiers. I don't put it out of the realm of possibility for humanity, you know what I mean?
I mean, what happened? So the implication here is that the name of the human military in this game is the UNSC, which is the United Nations Space Colonization Force.
Word.
Or something.
Yeah, and it 100% mimics the real human military. Like, they have all the stops, they have the coordination leaders and everything. Like, it's human military, which I think is cool.
But I think the implication is that like all the countries on Earth have like united into one like homogenous entity, you know.
If we ever get interstellar, we have to, yeah.
Or like at least one united military force.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. The third level, is that where you're inside the ring trying to go save him?
Not yet. So, you're on the ring, but this is like. So you fly in, and it's nighttime. This is a cool mission. It's nighttime, and you're going on like this basically special operations mission where you're going to infiltrate a Covenant cruiser that's parked above the ring.
Yeah.
And sneak on board, rescue Captain Keyes, and then get the fuck out before anybody has time to like really react to what's going on.
Yeah.
So, you come off and you have like the cover of night. You've got the sniper rifle in this mission they give to you.
It's a really fun mission.
And you get to like come up on this ridge and start picking people off. You know, they give you plenty of like devious angles to use the sniper rifle from.
And shows that Halo can be handled stealthy. I feel like this mission like incentivizes players because Halo is really all about tackling an area however you want to do it. There's obviously like objectives you have to do, but it's standard in games, I know, but this mission reminded me that you can do stealth, and stealth in Halo's fun. You have really powerful long-range weapons and the active camos and stuff. It's cool.
Oh, yeah. You can actually make it through a decent part of this level. This level is basically split into two parts, right? You have the ground part where you're going up to the ship and boarding it, and then you have the part where you're actually on the ship. And you can make it through, like, most of the first half of this level without, like, being detected.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're kind of like sneaking through these like desert nighttime canyons, picking off dudes, and you know, you keep getting like you keep getting more and more Marine reinforcements to keep pushing further and further. You know, again, it really sells you on that like military immersion factor of like this is a real military operation.
Like we have a war going on
right
now.
Yeah, like you'll keep hearing Cortana like we need more reinforcements, like you guys stay here, hold this position, we're gonna move up, you know, and scout ahead, don't come up until you hear combat start, you know. Like this is something that I think the newer Halo games don't do as well, is that real like military simulation effect.
I agree with you. Like Halo Infinite really just felt like Chief alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's why I said before, like I think the Marines really add a lot to this game.
100%.
Especially since we'll get into this later. But especially since you're gonna stop having them eventually. So you know, I think it adds to that effect of like you're not the only person in the military. Like you have a whole military operation behind you.
You're just a trump card that they're using.
Exactly. I want to talk about the gunplay here.
I'm down.
For a moment, because the second half of this mission is kind of story heavy. So, I think the gunplay in this game has aged like a fine wine. I don't know about you. I can go back and pick up this game and play it, and it feels like a modern game that came out 3 years ago.
Yeah. I think each of the guns feels incredibly unique. They have good design. I love Halo reloads, by the way. All the reload animations are really... I remember as a kid, I'd try to, like, when I'm playing with, like, Nerf guns and stuff, try to mimic the sounds of the Halo reloads.
I did the
like
same
that.
thing, actually.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I like games with satisfying guns. That's why I like Deep Rock, but regardless, they're all unique. They're all powerful. They all have positives and negatives, like Mike was saying. Like, the assault rifle really doesn't have that much range. It's more like you have to like get in relatively close. You use more like pistols and like semi-autos for long range and stuff.
And the sound design, like,
dude, they sound amazing.
Like, there is nothing that is like more satisfying than having... This is why I'm so upset that they changed the sound design of the assault rifle from Halo 1, because in Halo 1, when you hold down that assault rifle and listen to it fire off 60 rounds, like, it's loud, it's obnoxious, and it feels like you're firing a minigun.
Yeah, it's cathartic, dude.
And also, yeah, same with the animations, like, not only the reload animations, but the melee animations. Yeah, like
the pistol where you like
the pistol whip.
It,
yeah, literally a pistol whip. Or like I think the plasma pistol is just straight up a left hook.
Yeah,
you know, you know,
it's really fire.
Yeah, like there's so much love and care put into like the gunplay in this game.
It's the selling point.
You know, the 2-weapon system I think works really well.
It incentivizes getting new guns.
Yeah, and it also adds a layer of like strategy, because like you can't carry more than 2 guns, so you have to choose like what you want, you know.
Yeah.
Like you could take the rocket launcher, and you have a rocket launcher, but it's got limited ammo, and you're potentially swapping out like a long range weapon or like a more utility weapon, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about in the previous level, well, this is kind of the same thing, goes with the gameplay. This game has vehicles.
And they are amazing. Dude, maybe it's just because I mess around with them on Forge a lot, but yeah, the Warthog is iconic, Mongoose is iconic, the Banshees are iconic. I like that you can fly in this game.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of, like, FPS games that you take flight in, really. Most of them you're just, like, in a minigun on a plane.
Yeah,
like a helicopter. You're not like actually manning it and blasting out of it. It's
cool. They're like on rails. Yeah, no, the driving in this game is like when you're on that second mission and you get in that Warthog for the first time, you see the Pelican come in and it drops off the hog with the big machine gun turret on the back, and you get in and you just start whipping that thing.
Dude,
like it's such a unique feeling.
It feels so good, dude. I love Borderlands, but the Borderlands vehicles suck, and that came out so after
bad.
Halo 1.
They're so bad.
Like the Halo vehicles are so smooth, they feel so good. And the turrets on the back are literally just bottomless ammo, so you can just unload.
Yeah, and also like the vehicle has like collision physics, so you can run people over in it, which is super satisfying.
So satisfying. The AI smart will even jump out of the way though if they see you.
They will. Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah, and I like not to go back to the whole like open environments thing, but again, when you get in that Warthog and you start driving, that's I think again what kind of you have another realization of like this game's fucking huge.
Yeah.
These levels are huge.
They even have a ton of verticality. Like the invisible skyboxes and stuff are so low. Like you can fly so high in Halo,
my god, yeah.
Which is crazy. It's cool.
Yeah. And the vehicles, and they all control well too, which is like interesting. Like none of them really control super poorly.
There's no better feeling than doing co-op Halo and running a Warthog. You know what I mean? Your
God,
buddy's driving,
dude.
You're shooting.
Oh, split screen co-op. We didn't even talk about that.
Yo, split screen co-op. I miss it, bro. It's a dead age.
Yeah, so and this game was one of the first FPS games that had a huge focus on split screen co-op.
Yeah.
You know, so much so that there was a whole like revolution with Halo 5 and Halo Infinite that they didn't have split screen co-op.
Yeah.
Because it's such a core part of Halo's identity. Like Halo is the couch co-op game.
Exactly. I'm sure there's people today that still couch co-op it just for nostalgia or fun.
I would,
Right?
you know, like if I had 2 Xboxes and we could get like an 8-person LAN party going on, dude.
That'd be so crazy.
Oh my god, I miss LAN parties. I know I'm old, but like Jesus Christ, dude.
Right?
All right, so back to the third mission, Truth and Reconciliation. It's the name of the Covenant ship. Badass name, by the way.
That is really sick.
I love all the Covenant naming schemes. But so you board the ship, and this is obviously your first exposure to the Covenant architecture. Like you've been on the human ship, you've been on the ring, which has this kind of alien, but like a familiar style.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely alien, but it's all like gray steel and like, you know, it looks like vaguely human.
Yeah.
The Covenant stuff does not look human. It's like
No.
bright purple. It's all round and smooth.
So alien. Purple is such an interesting choice for alien technology too. Like if I'm not mistaken, I feel like it's usually like green. Like I feel like green is like an alien kind of thing.
Or blue.
But the purple that they go with is almost like royalty. You know what I mean? Like it's like that sense of royalty and high technology. It's cool.
Yeah, I know. It makes
Smart.
you feel like this faction is like way more advanced than you are.
Yeah.
Which they are, to be fair.
100%.
But they are more advanced than you are, but I mean this really makes you like feel like, oh wow, this ship is crazy. Like the way you get on the ship, it's not like you have to board a shuttle. Like they have a giant gravity lift where you where they reverse the gravity and you just float into the ship.
Insane.
They don't need to shuttle you down.
Yeah.
You know? Like that right there is like way advanced, way ahead of anything that the humans have, you know.
And I think it's like the military identity that like pushes that like there's this larger than life enemy against you, but you're going to accomplish your goal through sheer determination. Like we're undermanned, underarmed, but we're still gonna like go in and get the job done. It's cool.
Yeah, it's like a suicide mission basically.
Yeah. Pure determination.
You know, and again, the enemy is like the Covenant feel like an entire faction. Like they feel like a real military. They don't feel like just like stupid aliens that you're shooting. Like they feel intelligent, like elites. Like fighting elites one-on-one really feels like you're fighting somebody who's just as intelligent and like reactive as you are.
It's tough. Elites are tough to take down, dude.
They're
tough.
And they know, like they'll like when their shields get low, they'll retreat and go into cover. If your shields get low, they'll push you. They'll go for melee attacks. They'll dodge out of the way of your melee attacks. You know, like they really do feel like you're equal in
worthy
combat.
Opponent.
And they all have you can tell that they all have different ranks because they all have different colors of armor that all.
I really love elite armor.
Oh my god, dude! Elites are so cool.
They're so cool, bro.
They're just so fucking cool. Like
I agree completely.
And the fact that there's like human elite racism in the newer games, so they call them like split jaws.
Yep.
Or squid heads. You know,
because under their armor, they're tall, they're pretty big, but they're pretty skinny. It's the armor that gives them that huge buff, tanky look. Their armor's nuts.
Yeah, no, they're like 8 feet tall, and like, you know, like you can imagine that in real life. That's like taller than most like,
like,
you know,
double the height of some people.
Yeah,
crazy.
So, so you find Captain Keyes finally after you fight your way through this ship, waves and waves of aliens. The stealth mission's over at this point. Like everybody knows you're here, but you find Captain Keyes and. You get a little bit of like a story here where he tells you that he's been overhearing the Covenant communications and they are looking for something on this ring, that they came here, that they call it something called Halo, and it has some kind of religious significance, and he believes that they think it's some kind of weapon that they're planning to use against humanity.
Yeah.
And he says that they're looking for something called the Silent Cartographer, which he believes is like a map.
Yeah.
A map room of the entire ring. So he tells you the next mission is to go find that before the Covenant find it. But before you do that, you have to get off the ship.
Yeah.
And this is the one time in the game where you actually get to fight alongside Captain Keyes, which is pretty cool. You see him like pick up a weapon off a dead guy on the ground, and he's like, everybody move out, you know, and you get there and you call in the air support, and she's like, can't get to you, I'm cut off. And the Marines start freaking out. They're like, we're screwed, man. And Captain Keyes is like, pull your shit together. And he has kind of this badass moment where you go back to the hangar bay, and he gets in one of the Covenant dropships.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah. And he's and Cortana's like, just give me a minute to engage. And he's like, nah, I can drive this bad boy. And he just whips it right out of there.
I love that.
And so that takes you to the next mission where you're on this beautiful island. Do you remember this mission at all?
An island?
Yeah, you're on this little island in like the middle of an ocean. And this has kind of one of the more well-known scenes, sections where as soon as you come off of the dropship, you can already see the Covenant shooting at you before you even have control of your character.
It's like a D-Day moment.
Exactly. Like, you're kind of like, you have like 3 pelicans that drop you off, and you like storm up the beach.
Yeah.
To establish like a base. And you're here because that silent cartographer is like somewhere on this island. And so the goal is to find it. This is the one that I think you were talking about, where you go down inside the ring.
Yeah.
Into like these interworking tunnels.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, this level is kind of like, okay, wow, like the people who made this thing were not like some random, like they knew what they were doing.
This is incredible craftsmanship. And it's like a maze. It really does feel huge. It feels enormous.
Oh yeah.
And this is the level where they introduce those like sentinel things, right? Like the flying things with the lasers that shoot you.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Those are coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't seen any activity on the ring yet, other than just us and the aliens, the Covenant. But this level is really cool because you can actually approach it in like tons of different ways. Like, the game doesn't give you a direct objective. You just have to find the area.
Yeah.
And when you get to the area where the map room is, the Covenant lock it down, and you're like, oh, you have to kind of backtrack a little bit and find like the security override. But you can actually go to the security override first and turn it off first, and then go to the map room. And the dialogue and like sequencing is actually like a little bit different. Like, they accounted for that difference in like what you might do.
I didn't even know they gave you that freedom to do it. I don't remember what I did, but
yeah. So I really like that. Again, not a lot of FPS games did stuff like this at the time.
Yeah.
It's very basic now, and it's not even something the game tells you that you can do. Yeah,
I didn't even know that till just now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna fucking learn a lot today, alright?
I know, I am learning a lot.
I have like an autistic level of knowledge about this game.
Yeah, I'm with the audience on this one, really.
You've played it though. Do you remember playing it? We're gonna have to play it again.
I don't remember this chapter. There's just so much Halo. There's so much of it. There's so many games. It's all like one big story for me.
We're gonna have to play Halo 1 again together.
Yeah, we should.
Sans Adam. No offense to Adam. I love Adam.
I beat it on Legendary with Adam recently, though.
Oh, that's true. You did. Oh, so it should be fresh in your mind, you goober.
Maybe.
Anyway. So yeah, you go down. This level is actually really short. There's not too much to talk about. But you go down, you find the map room. The map room shows you where Halo's control center is. Kind of important to get there. If it's a weapon, you don't want the Covenant to activate it.
Yeah.
So that's your next objective. And you get picked up, and instead of flying outside to the control room, Cortana decides to take like an underground tunnel to the control room. To catch the Covenant by surprise. She's like, the last thing they're going to expect is an aerial insertion underground.
Yeah.
So, that's what you do. And then you have probably, I think, one of the most famous levels in the game, Assault in the Control Room. This is the big snowy area.
Yeah, and you take the Banshees around, too, in it.
Yeah, you get Banshees, you get a tank in this level.
Yeah. The tank in Halo is really cool, by the way. It's so powerful.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like an
the
actual
tank is sick.
beast. It's a beast.
It just blows everything up. Like the gun is super satisfying to use. The armor is thick. You can have Marines sit on the sides of it, like on the treads
Yeah.
that all shoot off the sides of it.
Did they have the mounted turret in Halo 1 on the tank?
Not yet. The driver controls the turret.
Oh, yeah.
So
You get a turret too on top of that.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. But it's such a cool. And what I like is it's called the Scorpion tank, and when I was a kid, I never used to know why it was called that.
Why is it?
If you look at it from the side, it looks like a scorpion.
Really?
Yeah, we can.
I'm gonna pull it up on my phone. Right
yeah,
now.
you look that up right now. But yeah, so this mission just feels like a huge military assault against basically the strongest Covenant force you've seen thus far. It's a really long mission. Has vehicle sections, corridor sections that are indoors with tight corridors. Do you see what I mean? Like this is like the body and then the stinger.
Oh, yeah. That's cool having the stinger be the cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I never knew that as a kid, and then one day I just looked at it, literally just looked at it like in game, and I was like, "That's why they call it a scorpion."
That's
I
so
just like
cool.
clicked for me.
Yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, this level is really long. You have kind of this long, like drawn out assault against the strongest Covenant, armada that you've seen up to this point.
Yeah.
Like you're fighting. You get all the stops, like all these vehicles and weapons. They do too. Like they have their own like mortar tanks, and they have the ghosts, which are like their little like scout vehicles.
I love the ghosts. Do you also see the hunters for the first time in this chapter?
Hunters have shown up by now, but we can talk
Right.
about them if you want.
I always thought the hunters were a really cool tank character. Can't you one-tap them with the magnum in the back in this game?
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind
Adam
of a
taught me
joke in
that.
this game because of that.
Yeah. But they are a really cool enemy. Their cannon is dope. They're big. Just a cool tank character. I like them.
Yeah, they have the big shield arm in front that's like impervious to bullets.
Their design is dope.
And they smack you with them, and they always come in twos.
Always in twos.
So if you see one of them, there's always another one around. Yeah, so you've got so you basically just go through this level basically combines all the gameplay elements of the previous levels into one. Like you have your indoor corridor shooter sections, you have your big outdoor areas with your vehicle play. You have your big outdoor areas where you're on foot. Like you said, there's sections where you get to fly a Banshee and do like aerial combat.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really quite something. You also lose track of Captain Keyes at this point.
I remember that.
There's a part where Cortana tries to contact him, and he's like, and somebody's like, "Oh, the captain's out of radio range right now, but I'll relay your message to him or whatever." And so you fight your way up. You get to the control room, which is this huge like spire, that's like built into a cliff.
Yeah.
And you take out this huge Covenant defense wave, and you go in. And I always remember this scene because this scene is like so Halo in my mind. Like you have this big glass bridge that goes into a big glass ring, and you see the Master Chief walk down it. And at the end is the Halo's control panel, and you can see a giant hologram of the planet that the ring is orbiting and the ring circling it.
So cool.
And it has that Halo music that's like the little like it almost sounds like beeps.
Yeah.
And it has that playing, and you put Cortana into the console and she pops up on the thing and she's going through all this information, and she's like, this ring is like thousands of years old, and it's a Forerunner design, and but it seems like it's something more than a weapon. And like the Master Chief starts asking her questions, and she's like, wait a minute. and you can sense like she starts to panic in her voice.
Yeah.
And she's like, the Forerunners have something here, and like they weren't supposed to have it, and she starts shouting like the captain, like you have to stop the captain, like, Captain Keyes, you got to stop him. And Master Chief's like, what are you talking about? She's like, there's no time, get out of here, find the captain, stop him before you don't even take Cortana with you. Chief like darts out of the room.
Like, you have to go now.
Yeah. And then we get to probably another one. This level, this game is just so iconic. We get to the swamp level.
I remember this one. Yeah,
this level's really important for a couple of reasons. So you get to this swamp, this like creepy swamp level, and you land. Your Pelican pilot is like, this is where, last reading from the captain was here about 6 hours ago. Tell me when you find him, I'll come pick you up. First thing about this level is that this is one of 2 levels where Cortana's not with you. And you kind of notice it instantly because it's very quiet.
That's really true. Because she's literally the narrator for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you a lot of time, I guess, to kind of like stew and think on all the new information that you were given to. Like, it gives you time to like breathe and think about everything.
Yeah, and think about like, what are we looking for? What is going on here?
All the questions.
Like you've never heard Cortana panic like that. She always sounds like cool, collected, like she always has a plan.
Yeah.
Now she's like, you got to get there and you got to stop him. Like, I don't even have time to explain this to you. Like, you just have to leave.
Yeah.
You don't even take her with you, and yeah, it's very like this level in general kind of has like almost like a survival horror theme going on. Where it's very like creepy, but not having Cortana with you definitely exacerbates that because you really feel like isolated.
Yeah.
There's no Marines, there's no Cortana, there's no ship, there's not even a lot of Covenant.
Of dread and paranoia in you.
Yeah, like there's not even a lot of Covenant. Like you're just kind of alone. And you make your way through the swamp. Pick off some Covenant. You can hear like some distress signals. You see like both a crashed Covenant ship and a crashed human ship. And you make your way into like this underground facility. You go down an elevator, and you come into this room. I don't know, you'll probably remember this. You come into the room, there's a Marine who's like crouched against the wall and he starts shooting at you.
Yes. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I think you watched when we came to that level with Adam. But I do like that there's at least like one paranoid Marine in every game, right? Like one Marine that's like freaking out. Yeah. At least in the first 3. Yeah. It's cool.
And he's shooting, he's like, get away from me, you're not turning me into one of those things. And actually, if you don't do anything with him and you actually walk away from him, he'll eventually shoot himself.
That's so depressing.
Yeah.
But it's real, though. I mean, this is war.
Yeah, and we're about to find out what exactly happened here. Like, at this point, you're starting to get the sense, like, something is, like, not right. Like,
yeah.
This does not feel like any level you've done previously. All the other levels have been, like, this big battle, right? Yeah. Like, you're storming an enemy ship, or you're taking over a beach, or you're fighting up this giant tower. This is just, like, you're in, like, this empty, abandoned facility. All the Covenants seem like they're on edge. You have this Marine that's, like, freaking the fuck out.
He's gonna be turned into something.
Yeah, like he's totally shell shocked. And eventually you come to this room and you open the door and you find a bunch of dead Marines inside. And Master Chief takes the recording from one of the Marines' helmets and plugs it into his helmet, and you get to watch the POV of the captain's squad that was here before you. Iconic fucking cutscene. And this cutscene, I mean, if anybody's played Halo, you know what I'm going up to here. This cutscene is the reveal of the real kind of antagonist of this game, which is the Flood.
Yeah.
Did you have any knowledge of the Flood before you played this level for the first time?
I did, but it was never really at like the forefront of my mind. I just knew it existed in Halo, and I didn't know when it was gonna appear. Like during this playthrough, I didn't know if it was even in Halo 1. But then you see that cutscene, and you see all the little like Flood running through, and I just knew instantly because it's like an iconic video game design. I feel like it's like the first if not like the most popular like hive mind concept in gaming.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost follows that zombie trope, but they're a lot more intelligent than like typical zombies. Like this is a legit hive mind that can destroy planets, destroy civilizations. But I think it's a really cool, like as far as a gameplay perspective goes, a really cool third party enemy. It gives the plot depth. It shows that the Covenant aren't invincible. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And it shows that there's even more unknown danger in the universe. Like, you as the player and as Master Chief are learning so much about the universe during all of this. I think it was really smart to put the Flood in the game. If it was just UNSC and Covenant, it would have been good. But this is what makes it great. And that's why Halo is one of the best games ever made.
Yeah, absolutely. This is such an iconic twist. I remember playing this game, and I was like, I could never play this game without my dad, because that Flood actually scared me when I was a kid.
They're freaky.
Like, they are basically, you're right, they're basically space zombies. It's like, it's almost like the Last of Us style zombies.
Yeah.
Where it's like, they're not, it's like a disease, but it's like a sentient disease.
Exactly.
I mean, like, the little enemies are literally called spores.
Yeah. And they're called the Flood because they literally flood out. Like, they come in huge volumes. They're supposed to be like a low enemy, a high quantity that you just shred through.
Yeah. Well, and they crash over you. Like, they crash over a species like a flood.
Yeah.
You know? And, yeah, and you see these enemies for the first time, and, well, the first thing you notice is that all the Marines in that video obviously die, but none of their corpses are here.
Yeah.
So, like, that's kind of concerning. And you probably start thinking about the fact, like, I haven't seen any elites in this level. That's interesting. And then you start hearing the doors break down. Like, you hear the dun, 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 and you see the little spores pour out. And you're, like, you're kind of shredding them. And you're like, all right, well, these guys aren't, like, you know, whatever. Like, there's a shit ton of them, but, like, they die really instantly.
Yeah.
And then you see, like, the actual, like, the real Flood, where you see, like, the elite corpses running at you.
Yeah.
And, again, I just have to take a moment and talk about, like, the design. Like,
Yeah.
if you've ever really looked at one of these infected elite corpses.
Oh, yeah.
So, you can see, like, you know how they have, like, the little, like, tentacles that come out of their face?
Yeah.
You can see the elite's head still. Like behind
through
it.
The tentacles and
it's like, well, it's above that, but it's
Yeah.
like like the neck is snapped and it's just flopping behind it, like,
gross.
you know.
It's
and
horrifying. Like, it's actually
oh my
scary.
god, yeah, it's terrifying. And they have these big claw arms.
Yeah.
And like same with the human ones too. Like you can see like the head is just like to the side, you know.
It's disgusting. And it's really accurate, dude. If the Flood existed, like, it would not be pretty. It's not going to be some like cute, like, you're going to be like malformed and disgusting. It's realistic. It's cool.
Yeah. And so now your goal is like, you know, fuck Captain Key is like, I got to get out of here, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you know, again, like you said before, this is where you, like, the Covenant is, like, not invincible to you anymore. Like, you see them truly panic in this level.
Yep.
You know, and same with the Marines. Like, as you're fighting your way through this, first of all, eventually you get to the point where the Flood starts shooting at you, and you have this, like, oh, guns. Shit, they can use guns, you know? Which is another thing that elevates them above, like, they're not just mindless zombies, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're intelligent enough to use guns. So that's great.
Yeah.
And wait till you get to the part where they start using rocket launchers.
So annoying.
It's so ass. But yeah, so you're fighting your way up, and eventually you come across this squad of Marines that's, like, bunkering in this the entrance to one of these facilities. And the guy runs up to you. He's like, Chief, thank God you're here. These things, they came out of nowhere. They ambushed us. Everybody's dead. We got to get the fuck out of here. You know, and you, like, lead these people. And all the Marines have unique dialogue that only plays on this level. Where they're like, you freaky motherfuckers. Like, get away from me. Like, we're screwed. This is insane.
Yeah.
You know? I think there's one line that one of them says sometimes where they're like, is that Jerry? You know, like, you know, or some shit like that.
I really wish I appreciated the Marines more when I played Halo, because you're right, like, they were there and they were always, like, supplying just immersion. Like they're the perfect tool for immersion, honestly.
Yeah,
Because
they
Chief
really
doesn't
are.
say a lot, so like they vocalize like that human emotion of all this bizarre shit happening.
Yeah, exactly. They are. They're like the human element of the game.
Yeah.
You know.
Cool.
So, yeah. So you fight your way back out of the swamp. You get ambushed by a bunch of flood, and this is where your friends, the little robot sentinels, come down.
Yeah.
And you see a bunch of these machines fly down, and they start zapping the flood with these lasers. And you hear like a robotic humming. You know, you hear that.
Yeah.
And suddenly, this is where the monitor appears. 343 Guilty Spark. And he's like, someone has released the flood. We have to contain this infection before it spreads too far and gets off the ring. You need to come with me right now. And before you can even say anything, he just teleports you away. You can hear the Pelican pilot like, Chief, where'd you go? Hello? You know, like you're just gone.
Guilty Spark is such an annoying little. I love him though.
He's a weasel, dude.
Yeah, he's literally a weasel.
You Weasley little liar, dude.
He's basically like the Covenant's. He's an AI.
Yeah.
Isn't he the silent cartographer?
No.
He's not, or is that just the map room?
That's just the map. Yeah.
Word.
He's just a monitor, is what he's called. They are like these AI that were designed by the Forerunners to kind of watch over the Halo rings.
Okay.
And kind of keep them maintained.
I remember his design when I first saw it, because I played a lot of Halo Reach Forge. You would play as that design, like you would play as them in Forge, and I never understood what it was or why. And I played Halo 1 and thought it was cool. I was like, oh, it's the Forge ball. Not knowing that it was... Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, they're basically like little floating eyeballs.
Exactly,
you know?
Yeah. They remind me a lot of like the Portal personality cores.
It's probably what they were inspired by, honestly.
True.
Because they do all have unique personalities. Like, you do see other
That's
monitors
true.
throughout the Halo games.
Yeah.
But I do like, again, the naming scheme. Like, Guilty Spark is such a
really
wild
unique name. Yeah.
You know, there's another one that's called, like, Ardent Tangent.
That's cool.
You know, but anyway.
Yeah, I like the Sentinels in this level. I like using the laser gun that they drop. I just like guns in games that's just like a death beam. Like me and Deep Rock with the NG death beam,
God, yeah.
and then this game with the death beam.
Yeah, so the monitor takes you to the worst level in Halo 1, which is the library. This level is nothing but flood.
Confusing.
Yeah, it's a giant flood maze where you just kind of have to follow the monitor around. The reason you're here is the monitor basically tells you that the only way to stop the flood is to activate Halo. Is to activate Halo's defenses. And to do that, you have to get something called the Index, which is like a key that you use to activate the ring.
Yeah.
Which is in this library. So you kind of walk through. This level is not super in-depth. Like, it's kind of just corridors shooting flood. Yeah. There's a lot of holdout sections where the monitor just leaves to do some random bullshit.
You're fighting for your life. It's kind of a tough chapter. On Legendary, it really sucked.
It's a tough level, yeah.
Yeah.
But you get the shotgun in this level.
I love the shotgun.
The shotgun is so... Talk about guns, dude.
Yeah.
Halo has, I think, my favorite shotgun out of any video game shotgun.
It's really nice. I like the design a lot, too. My favorite Halo shotgun's the Reach, but Halo 1's is cool. I like the green strips and like the kind of like fox shape of it.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool.
And it's also really long.
Yeah.
Like, it's like 5 feet long.
Yeah.
It's got a huge pump on the end. I like that it's a top-loaded shotgun, too, so when you reload, you can see yourself sliding the shells into it.
100%.
And it's loud as fuck. Yeah. Just so satisfying to use. But yeah, not too much happens in this level. You get the Index, and the monitor takes you back to the control room, which is where Cortana still is, because you haven't been back yet.
Yeah.
So she kind of screams at you when you put the index in, and she's like, I've been watching you gallivant around with this thing, which is about to kill us all. And Master Chief's like, what are you talking about? And Cortana tells you what Halo truly is at this point,
Yeah.
which is not just a weapon. It's actually a weapon designed to kill the Flood specifically. How do you kill the Flood? Well, you starve them to death, right?
Yeah.
It's the only way to stop them from spreading is to stop them from having any food.
Yeah.
Their food is sentient life. So these things are designed, these Halo rings, are designed to wipe out all sentient life in the galaxy.
By carrying the Flood everywhere?
No, by killing all sentient life.
Oh, to stop the
The
Oh,
Flood.
yeah. Okay.
Because the Forerunners decided that it was worth wiping out an entire civilization.
Because the Flood could take
To
over
stop
the
the
entire
Flood.
universe.
Exactly. So that's what the Monitor wants you to do. Of course, he never told you this. He just told you that activating Halo would stop the Flood.
Which is true.
You know, Cortana says to Master Chief, like, you don't believe me? Ask him. And Master Chief's like, is this true? And he's like, in a manner of speaking, yeah. But, like, surely you already knew that.
Yeah.
And this is where the Monitor turns on you, because obviously you don't want to activate Halo anymore because you don't want to wipe out all of humanity.
Yeah.
So you take Cortana back, who has the index, so the Monitor can't activate Halo either.
Yeah.
But now he basically needs to kill you to take the index back. So, and then this level is basically just Assault on the Control Room, but backwards.
Yeah.
This is the first level where you fight major groups of Flood and Covenant at the same time, which is cool because they also fight each other.
Yeah. So it feels like a real war.
Yeah, this feels like all hell has broken loose on the ring.
Yeah, which it has.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the Flood are everywhere, the Covenant are panicking, the humans are almost non-existent. There's actually a really cool book, not to go too much off topic, but there's a book that actually talks about what the rest of the Marines were doing during this time while you're dealing with the Flood. I think they were trying to repair a Covenant ship to get off the ring. And then, like, I think it turns out that the ship had been compromised by the Flood, and they couldn't take it back to Earth because they were risking taking the Flood to Earth, which would be disastrous.
Yeah.
So the squad decides as a team that the right thing to do is just sacrifice themselves and blow up the ship.
Dang.
So that both the Flood and the Covenant can't get off the ring.
That's sad.
Yeah, it's a super cool book. Anyway, not at all related to the Halo 1, but...
worries.
Yeah, so you see the Covenant kind of panicking. They're, like, freaking out, fighting the Flood. One thing I did want to talk about, too, in terms of gameplay, is the difference in fighting the Flood versus fighting the Covenant.
Oh,
right?
100%, yeah.
Like, the Covenant use, like, real military tactics. Like, they'll take cover, they'll try to ambush you, they'll try to flush you out of cover with grenades, they'll rush you when they think they're winning, they'll retreat when they think they're losing. The Flood don't do any of this. They just run at you and try to overwhelm you with sheer numbers, with no regard for their own individual well-being.
Yeah, they're fodder.
Yeah, but there's also a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
And they also have a chance to, like, just get back up.
Oh yeah, if you don't fully... I forgot about that, yeah.
In Halo 1, it's just a random chance.
Yeah.
Like they just sometimes will randomly stand back up.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you'll just turn around and you'll get jump scared because there's a Flood in your face. Which is cool because now you have this level where you have both of these factions at the same time as opposed to fighting them one-on-one. And you have to manage both the kind of more tactical style of fighting the Covenant versus the, like, fight for your life style of fighting the Flood.
Yeah.
And so this level, Cortana comes up with a plan on how to stop the Flood and get off the ring without activating Halo. So what you do in this level is you destroy 3, like, generators so that the Monitor can't activate Halo without the index.
This chapter is so annoying, bro. Trying to get the grenades in there is so ass.
That's not yet.
That's not yet?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the last level. This is the one where like you have like you remember the big beams of light and you walk into them and it drains your shields.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then so you do that. Also, Cortana finds Captain Key's signal. Like that thinks like he might still be alive.
Yeah.
Which you also need to find him because you need his neural implants for Cortana's plan to work. Her plan is essentially to go back to the Pillar of Autumn, which is the ship you came here on, and blow up the fusion reactor, like the nuclear fusion reactor of the ship, to cause basically a nuclear explosion that will blow up and physically destroy the ring, which will keep the flood on it. It'll wipe the flood out that are on it. It'll wipe out whatever Covenant are left on it, and hopefully there's a way for you to escape in the process.
Yeah.
To do that, you have to get the implant from Captain Keyes. So, you go back to the Covenant ship that you were on earlier, which has now been overrun by the flood.
Completely.
Cortana tells you that the Covenant are in complete disarray. They're panicking that the Flood are going to repair the ship and use it to escape. So they have like special ops teams here to try and fix the ship and drive the Flood off of it. Captain Keyes is also on this ship, and you hear him patch in a little bit throughout the level where he's like completely delirious.
Yeah.
Like he's just shouting like nonsense. He's like, "I gave you an order, soldier, pull out."
And you're like, what order?
And when you find him, do you remember this scene?
He is just completely like cocooned in flood nastiness.
Yeah, they're turning him into like a proto grave mind.
Oh,
So they're trying to turn him into like the central of the hive mind. And you see his body, and Cortana's like, there's no human life signs detected, like he's one of them. Oh. And she's like, you know what he'd want us to do.
Yeah.
And Chief fucking drills his hand through his face and rips out his neural implants.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Cortana's just quietly like, we should go.
Yeah.
Super cool. There's actually one thing I want to touch on. In the remastered version of this game, there's a terminal you can find underneath Captain Keyes in this level. And it's basically his last moments alive, like in his mind before he turns. He just keeps repeating his name to himself and his designation to try and keep the flood, because he can tell that the flood mind is looking for the location of Earth in his brain.
Yeah.
And he's trying to keep them from it, so he just keeps repeating his name to himself and over.
Creepy.
He's like, Captain James Keyes, UNSC designation, blah, 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 Pillar of Autumn, Captain. And he just keeps repeating that over and over again. And
that
at the end,
attention
he's
to
like,
detail is crazy.
yeah. So, not in the base game, admittedly. It's only in the remaster. But it's super cool. So, anyway. You get his implants, you drill a hole in his head.
Yeah.
And you escape on a Banshee. And this takes you to the final level, which is the revisit of the Pillar of Autumn, which is now crashed on the ring.
Really cool mission.
Yeah, super cool. Kind of feels like you've come full circle, you know?
Literally, yeah.
Obviously, the Pillar of Autumn's in complete disarray. It's being overrun by both Covenant and Flood. And everything's broken. Cortana goes to the bridge, tells you to go to the bridge. You go to the bridge, which is where you first started the game. And she activates the self-destruct sequence. Unfortunately, the monitor comes in and shuts it off.
Of course.
Because he doesn't want you to blow up the ring. And he's like, why would you want to lose all this data? He's like, human history, huh? Fascinating. As he's like reading through all these records.
That's cool.
And so this is another one of like my favorite Chief and Cortana moments, where Chief's like, well, what are other options? Like, how can we do this? And she's like, well, I can't restart the self-destruct countdown But, you know, if we could cause a large enough explosion to cause the engine to destabilize, it would probably explode and create the same effect.
Yeah.
And Chief is like, how much firepower would you need to crack one of those? And she's like, I don't know, like a well-placed grenade probably, but what? And then she turns around and Chief's bouncing a grenade in his hand. And she's like, all right, I'm coming with you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you go to the engine room in the Pillar of Autumn. You blow up the engines. Everything starts fucking exploding. Fires start breaking out. You can hear the alarm on the ship going off.
Yeah.
And Cortana calls in a Pelican. Pelican's like, everything all right down there? Cortana's like, negative. You get in the Warthog. This is the Warthog run. You remember this section? Yeah. So iconic, dude. You get in a Warthog and you have to haul ass across this ship to get to the pickup point.
It's literally just one big driving level. It's really cool. There's tons of ramps and different paths you can take too. It's cool.
Oh yeah, and the whole time you're getting shot at. You know, you're going through these battlefields of Covenant and Flood and Sentinels. Yeah. And you're trying not to flip because you also have a time limit. Like, you have to get to the end of the level before the ship explodes.
Yeah.
And then you get to the meeting point. You see the Pelican, which was the last friendly human on the ring, gets shot down by the Covenant Banshees. And Cortana's like, okay, there's still a fighter jet docked. If you haul ass now, you might be able to make it. So you haul ass to the fighter jet. At this point, like, the enemies aren't even fighting you. Like, they're just running away because they're also trying to get off the ship.
Yeah.
And there's this cool scene. You get to the end of the level. Master Chief darts onto this like, fighter jet. You can see the Flood swarming from behind him. He punches it out of the hangar. And you take off. And the Pillar of Autumn explodes. You get the cutscene where the ring blows up and you see the pieces start smashing into each other. Cortana says that you are the only ones that have made it off the ring. Says everything else is just dust and echoes. Yeah. Kind of a famous line. But that you guys did what you had to do.
It had to be done.
You know, between the Covenant Armada and the Flood, that there was really no other choice. And then she says, this is like... kind of like such a cool line. She's like, I guess Halo's finished. And Master Chief is like sitting down and he takes off his helmet. Not that you can see his face, but you see him take the helmet off. He's like, I think we're just getting started.
Yes. That's cool though, because that's like the name. It's like Halo's finished. You just beat the game. It wraps together. That's cool. What was your reaction when you first beat the game? Do you remember?
Dude, it felt so good. It felt like... what I like about Halo 1 is it's a self-contained story. Yeah. Like, yeah, there's an entire series that this game spawned, but Halo 1 has a start and an end point. Like, it's a self-contained, you know, adventure. 100%. And I really like that. You know, I like how Cortana and Chief feel like, you know, like at the beginning, they're like just working together, and at the end of the game, they sound more like friends, you know?
And then later games make them fall in love, which is questionable. But,
yeah, questionable decision, but we don't have to talk about that. But yeah, it feels amazing. Like, how did you feel when you first beat the game?
I thought it was really cool. I just like the cinematics in Halo a lot. I thought the final cinematic was cool and just straight up good. Just straight up good. It's hard to find anything bad to say about Halo.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The only thing I can really say that's negative about this game is that the second half of the game, besides the Flood, is not as strong as the first half, I think.
I feel like some of the level design is a little bit boring, which is weird because they have really good level design on some of these levels than other ones.
Oh, they do. Yeah. I think the reason you say that is because the geometry repeats.
Yeah.
So, like, you go to the level after the library is basically just Assault in the Control Room, but in reverse. Yeah. It's the same exact level layout.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have the level after that is like the Covenant ship level, but again, and then the level after that is like the Pillar of Autumn, but again you know. So,
100%.
um,
But it makes sense within the story.
yeah, and it makes sense, and it's also understandable. Like, this game was from 2001.
They
They
already
didn't
made
have
so many leaps and bounds in other places.
exactly. They didn't have the resources to like, the fact that the game is even this long at all is kind of a marvel. So,
Yeah.
they didn't obviously have the resources to make a ton of like new content for each individual level. Um, but yeah, that's Halo.
A pillar of autumn. No, I'm kidding. It's a pillar of gaming.
It is.
Like when you think about gaming and the history of gaming, like Halo is there.
Yeah. Can't talk about Halo without talking about the multiplayer, I feel.
True.
I know we touched on the split screen. Split screen co-op was a huge feature that this game introduced.
Yeah, and the multiplayer is literally like an arena shooter. You have different game modes and stuff, but it feels very floaty, airy, and a lot of deathmatch. It's cool.
Yeah.
I like modern Halo.
Yeah, a lot of emphasis on power weapons.
Yeah.
Halo 1 has some of the most unique multiplayer maps. Like, I don't know if you've ever looked through them.
I've never played the multiplayer on one.
Oh, Halo 1. Halo 1 had multiplayer, like, even back when it came out in 2001.
Great. Remember when games had campaign multiplayer, then sometimes a third mode?
Yeah. Had an entire multiplayer mode with a lot of the customization options from the modern games. Like, you could do custom games in Halo 1.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. That was just, Bungie was so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And yeah, this game is like obviously notorious for like Halo LAN parties, You see there's tons of footage of Bungie just loving their own game where you'll see them in their office with 4 TVs lined up playing 16-player LAN.
Yeah. This was a labor of love.
Yeah, and but Halo 1 has some really unique map designs. Like there's this map that I like called Boarding Action, which is 2 spaceships that are like parallel to each other, and the middle is like empty space, like you can just fall off the map. So they're like open cross sections of spaceships, and the way you get across is through teleporters.
Oh.
But you can snipe people also like across the entire ships.
That's cool.
Yeah, and there's another one that's like a huge like teleporter maze where the the map is split into like 6 or 7 rooms that are connected by teleporters only.
I wish I could have played in the golden age.
I mean, if you have MCC, you can play Halo 1 now. You can play like Halo 1 classic multiplayer the way it was not truly the way, but almost the way it was in 2001,
That's cool.
But yeah, and I mean, this game, this is more so for Halo 2 specifically, but Halo is like the reason that Xbox Live even exists.
Oh, for
which
people
is kind of
to
crazy.
do those servers, yeah.
So,
man.
Yeah.
Before we start wrapping stuff up, do you want to talk about Bungie at all? I know you thought about not Bungie, but 343 and Bungie at all, or should we save that for Halo Infinite's podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about more Halo games in the future. I don't know if it's going to be right after this podcast, but I do just want to touch on Bungie. So if you have time or you're a Halo fan, I highly recommend. Bungie made a development documentary for every one of their Halo games, including Halo 1. You can probably find them online. They used to be things that you could buy with like the special editions where you'd get the Halo, you get the game disc, and then you get the disc like a DVD with the developer like documentary.
I kind of want to find that. That'd be cool to watch.
I'm sure you can find them online. And they really just like give you an insight as to like Bungie as a company, and it really did feel like 30 like nerds who were just making like a passion project.
Yeah.
And they say this in the Halo 1 episode, like they had no idea if this game was going to do well. They weren't even sure about the concept of it. Like they were like, who wants to play as like a random guy like fighting aliens? And like originally, like I said, it wasn't even going to be a first person shooter. So, they struggled with the direction of this game for a long time. And then they were developing it, and it was supposed to be a PC game. And then Microsoft was like, "Hey, we're releasing a console, and we want this on the console," and so they had to now adapt it for a controller. Um,
Everything just fell into place, dude.
Like
it's kind of incredible.
It is. It's amazing that this game released in such a solid state. You know, I mean, there's games today that have 20 times the budget that this game had, and 3 times as many staff members that come out way worse in a way worse state. You know, but I mean, what you can tell is that they really like this. Bungie was made up at the time of like just people who played video games. Like, there's so much footage, like I said, of them just playing the game. You know, like they were truly like in love with their own game.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's
this
hard
was
not to
true.
love.
Yeah, and it was true for later games in the series too. Like Halo 3, they were super interactive with the community.
Yeah.
It was super like common to find Bungie developers just in public matchmaking, like just playing the game.
That's so cool.
You know, they would do like community days and stuff. Like the Bungie of the past is just like unmatched. You know, like they were truly, like I said, truly ahead of their time, I think. So.
Wow, dude. Well, any closing thoughts on Halo? Anything that you want to let the people know?
I need a weapon. No, I'm just kidding. I love this game. Halo is probably my favorite game franchise of all time. Like I said, it has a special place in my heart. It was a huge part of my childhood. I grew up playing Halo 1 with my dad and Halo 2 with my brother, and then I played Halo 3 online. I don't know how many hours I put in Halo 3 online, dude.
Yeah.
And Halo Reach. And like I'm just a huge fan of this series, and you know, like I said, it's a lot of the reason that I love video games, you know.
Yeah.
Like this game just does so much stuff right, and you know, even besides my own personal opinion, like it's such an important game for the industry. Like first-person shooter games would not be where they are today without Halo 1. Console games as a whole would not be where they are without Halo 1. Yeah. I mean, that's about it.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say?
I think you should play Halo 1. It's unfortunate you'll never be able to play in the golden age like people like Mike got to, but as someone who played it recently, if you're wondering if it's worth playing, it's 100% worth it. If the graphics are an issue for you, there's modern graphics now too. It just holds up and it's fun and you can play it co-op. And I recommend paying attention to the story. Even though you heard it here, like, it's cool. It's a fun story. Play Halo.
Play Halo, please. Yeah, what would you give Halo out of 100?
I'm going to give Halo a 90. And it's for the reasons that we mentioned earlier, just with the maps. Like, I remember my first time playing it, like, a lot of that repeating stuff got kind of draining. And I know it's only because it's a product of its time, but games don't need sprint. But in Halo, I feel like you're really slow. Like, I do feel like you're pretty slow, which bothers me. But that's a personal opinion. That's not objective. But that's it. That's really the only things I can complain about.
I can't believe you're a dirty fucking sprint enjoyer, dude.
There's some, like, long stretches in that game that I just really wish I could move a bit faster. And
see, I like that because I feel like it gives you time to like absorb the environment.
Yeah, it's definitely just a personal thing.
You know, there's so much action in the game that I feel like those slow parts are like needed.
It's true.
You know, but no, I understand. Like, if you're a person playing games in the modern age, it's hard to adjust to a game that doesn't have a sprint button for sure. I'd probably give it like a 97. I think.
Where do those 3 points go?
Just the repeated level geometry.
Yeah.
And this isn't something I talked about a lot, but this game is very fair. You know?
Is.
The other Bungie Halo games can't really say that. Like, there's a lot of bullshit in those games.
Halo 2 Legendary is really...
Yeah, if you've ever played Halo 2 Legendary, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But Halo 3 and Halo Reach has these problems too. Halo 1 really doesn't have these problems.
No.
Like, it feels very fair. Like, there are people who can play through the entirety of Legendary without dying.
Yeah, I didn't even struggle with it that hard.
Yeah, on Halo 1.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't do that in any other Halo game because it's just not possible because the game is like unfair.
Yeah.
However, the exception to this is the rocket launcher flood, because they have no telegraph for when they're about to blast you in the face, and they will shoot the rocket at point blank.
They will.
And those guys are bullshit. And you know, and then so there's 1 point there, and then 2 points for the repeating levels. I agree that, like you said, even though it is a product of its time, it does make it somewhat hard to go back and replay. No, I think it's not that big of a deal because I think the story is enough that it carries.
I agree. Because, like we said, it makes sense. Like, the story makes sense with why you're doing it.
Yeah, and the levels are long enough where there's enough stretch of time between the repeated levels that you don't really think about it
and
unless...
then they're introducing new enemies in those areas.
Exactly, and all the encounters are different, the vehicles are different. You only really notice it if you've played the game more than once.
Which I have now, which is fair, yeah.
Right. The first time you play through, honestly, you don't really notice it.
No, I didn't care. Man. Yeah, we should play Halo 1. We should play it.
Yeah, we should.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a wrap. Episode 11 in the new studio. Mike, you want to do our iconic outro?
Oh, yeah. I would love to do our iconic outro. Guys, once again, this has never changed a single time. It's been the same every single episode.
If you're a real fan, you remember this.
Absolutely. Put it in the comments.
Yeah, right now. What
everybody type the outro in the comments. We'll hit you with it here. Do you want to give a countdown?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
Wort. No shot that actually just happened. That's so funny. Wow. I love this podcast.
Thanks, dude. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Skill issue for life. We love you guys.
Yes, I love you. Take care. Brush your hair. Bye-bye.